There is a certain type of political temperament that is drawn almost irrevocably to anything which emits even the faintest whiff of revolution. The eruption of the conflict in Catalonia between the Spanish state and the separatist movement has been a useful case in point. For some, because Catalan separatism has mobilized its supporters against a reactionary capitalist state, it must by definition have something going for it. This logic is buttressed by the fact that the dictatorship of General Franco violently suppressed all facets of Catalan culture, while the incumbent Popular Party, arguably its successor movement, clings to the notion that the Catalans are a nationality but not a nation. As a Spanish friend recently put it to me, it is nearly impossible to imagine the Spanish Conservative Prime Minister Mariano Rajoy following the lead of David Cameron in Scotland and granting Catalans the right to hold an official referendum. If he did, Rajoy would lose all the Conservatives, my friend told me. Images of Spain's Guardia Civil whacking old ladies over the head with rubber truncheons have only served to cement the narrative of a plucky Catalonia intent on to self-determination versus a post-Francoist Popular Party that is only ostensibly post-Francoist. Some 800 people were injured during the clashes between police and voters on October 1, while local newspapers were raided and their journalists harassed. When I see an actual flesh and blood worker in conflict with his natural enemy, the policeman, I do not have to ask myself which side I am on, as George Orwell, whose placard adorns a modest square in Barcelona, once wrote. In this instance, the side one ought to be on is undoubtedly that of the Catalans. But this is only true up to a point. Spain's constitution was created in 1978 with a fear that the Franco dictatorship could return. And it almost did in 1981, when right-wing elements in the army stormed the Congress of Deputies and took 350 MPs hostage. As things stand, the Constitution of '78 does not allow Catalonia to hold a referendum, and asserts in Francoist language the indissoluble unity of the Spanish nation. Rajoy's argument against a Catalan referendum is both self-serving and circular. The current referendum is illegal under the Constitution, yet the ruling Popular Party will block any attempt to reform the Constitution. To most fair-minded people this is an obvious injustice. Around 80% of people in Catalonia are said to favor the holding of an official referendum. The intransigence of the Popular Party is an affront to any meaningful concept of self-determination, the right of a people to decide their own destiny. In truth, it is hard not to see in it at least an echo of the Francist attitude towards Spain's autonomous regions. During the fag end of the Civil War, Franco's rebel army led a deliberately ponderous war of annihilation through Catalonia and other formerly autonomous regions, according to the Spain scholar Paul Preston. The purpose of the brutal policy Spain has the dubious honor of containing the second highest number of disappeared persons in the world after Cambodia was to strike fear into potentially restless populations in the early days of the dictatorship. But despite the historic repressions of Spain's autonomous regions, it is worth asking the question posed by Rosa Luxemburg a century ago in terms of what the basis for the current push toward Catalan self-determination might be. The nation, Luxemburg wrote, should have the right to self-determination. But who is that nation, and who has the authority and the right to speak for the nation and express its will? How, she added, can we find out what the nation actually wants? In the case of Catalonia, the actions of the government of Carlos Puigdemont represent the legitimate mobilization. But the referendum of October 1 is not the referendum the Catalan people need. Nor does its result give us a clear idea of what the nation actually wants. The poll of October 1 produced a majority of 90% for independence on a meager turnout of 42%. Many of those opposed to secession boycotted the vote entirely. In contrast, according to a June 2017 poll, just 41% of Catalans were in favor of an independent state, compared to 49% who were against it. Support for independence peaked at 57% in 2012, but for the past decade a slim majority have consistently favored remaining part of Spain. Puigdemont himself governs with a slim majority based on only a minority of the popular vote produced by regional elections which took place in 2015. Indeed, part of Puigdemont's flag-waving strategy appears to be aimed at distracting the Catalan people from his government's own austerity drive. Interestingly, a recent analysis of polling data by The Atlantic found a strong correlation between support for independence and unemployment in Catalonia, squashing the liberal assumption that outbursts of nationalist fervor appear as if by magic. Critical cheerleaders for Catalonian independence ought perhaps to keep in mind Bertrand Russell's warning about the fallacy of the superior virtue of the oppressed. The familiar rushing toward the supposed underdog, whereby all his ideas are swallowed uncritically, is an unfortunate habit on the left, and brings to mind some of the other sordid dalliances of the past decade or so which were rooted in a similar logic of my enemy's enemy is my friend. In Catalonia, defending the right self-determination in no way obliges one to support it, especially when it is built on such flimsy democratic grounds as this.